Welcome to today's trade recap. Today is July 24th, 2026. I took two trades today, one break even and one trailed out, making $227.28 across all five of my Top Step accounts, totaling to $1,136.40. So let's get into it. Now, coming into the new day, we end up making a bearish new day opening gap, and I am overall bearish because we're respecting this daily fair value gap right over here. So I'm looking for some sort of sell to complete this sell model all the way down to this daily swing right here. So if we drop down on the 30-minute, we do have these bullish gaps in the way, but what we end up doing is we create a, like I just said, bearish new day opening gap right here. So I'm looking for us to retrace into this because it aligns with my high time frame bias. So once we get this gap, I drop down to the 1 minute and I wait for us to tap it, rebalance this unfilled range, and then get some sort of market structure shift to take it down lower. So we end up tapping it right over here. We fill this gate, we fill the entire range on the 30-minute, so I'm waiting for a market structure shift, and we end up getting that right here. So I enter short on this market structure shift, and then I'm basically just taking it right down to here for my piece of the pie, with my overarching target being this daily swing right over here. Now, this ends up running, chopping around for a while, and we have Asia open right here. So we chop in green, whatever, pull back. So what I like to do most of the time is go break even, especially if we're this far down right before we get a session open, just because there's a sudden injection of volatility, and I'm not sure if that global session is going to continue the trend that I think we're going to be in. So I go break even right here, bringing my stop, right there. And what we end up doing is stopping me out and then basically running straight to full TP right after. So I ended up making like $8 on this because I always put my break even slightly in profit because fees that get taken. So yeah, overall, I mean, this was a great trade. I have a hard time debating on whether or not to go break even or not when a session opens, just because I have gotten burned before where I'm like, I won't go break even, just to give myself that room. And what ends up happening is we take out this, we still technically had 1 minute unbalanced new day opening gap up here. So I wasn't too confident that we might not need to resweep this high to then move down. So I just played it safe. This was a good trade. My friend took this and he actually held it to full TP. But yeah, so anyway, going on to the second trade. So overall, I'm still targeting the same draw. So if we get some sort of closure below this low, I'm then thinking, okay, we can then target New York PM low, with my overarching target being this daily gap right here. So if we play some 30-minute candles, we displace all the way down here. I don't get an entry yet, but what we end up doing is we close below New York PM low, showing me that we end up wanting this daily low. So what happens when we're doing this is we make these 30-minute consecutive gaps right here. But then what we also end up doing is getting this 1 hour fair value gap, highest time frame gap in the leg. So I'm looking for us to pull back into this 1 hour fair value gap, get some sort of resweep market structure shift to then target the daily gap. So what ends up happening is if we go on the 1 minute time frame, we end up mitigating the 1 hour gap right there. So then once again, I'm just waiting for some sort of market structure shift to then take me to the downside. So at the moment it would be here. We don't end up closing below that, then I move it. It would still be here since we didn't resweep this high yet. And what we end up doing is we resweep the high right there. So now I would be looking for a market structure shift right below here. We come very close. We don't get it. I don't get an entry. And what ends up happening is we almost resweep, don't get an entry. We resweep all the way up top right here, as you can see. So then my level gets moved to the swing low right before the resweep right there. So once we get our market structure shift, you could be in right there. I entered right here. You could also have waited for we also fill the 1 hour perfectly. So that was another added confluence on top of that. You also could have waited for the 5 minute market structure shift right here, which ends up hitting right there. Since we reached the high, wait for us to close below the swing low. But I waited for the 1 minute. I entered up here, and now, okay, so I entered, when did I enter? I entered at 12:51. So once again, we have a session open that's going to happen during our trade right here. So I have my target just here because, 4R is good enough for me. I don't know if we're going to sweep past this and go another 30 points. I'll take my piece of the pie right here. And what ends up happening, this is my target. Now coming into another session open during my trade, I wanted to secure profits today, unlike what happened earlier. So I ended up trailing my stop into profit. We were also coming up on this breakaway 5-minute gap right here that could push us up. And if you are looking on the 5-minute time frame where we got our breakup structure right here, we also have a clear break-even point right here. So my break-even level would have been here if we didn't have a session open or we're already in a session. But since we have that random injection of volatility, I want to protect my position. I end up trailing my stop into profit. London opens, we push down a little bit. We end up sweeping out this level where I would have went break-even. So I trail even farther to about I believe right there. And what ends up happening is we go up, sweep it out. We end up mitigating this 15-minute gap. And we don't end up inversing it. We get another market structure shift out of this 15-minute gap. Now, I was already out of the trade at this time. I did paper trade this just to see, and this does end up playing out all the way down to we put in an SMT, but I believe right there should be our SMT. If we go on ES over here, we put in our SMT with this level right around right here. So I then would have closed. So I ended up making, just half of what I would have closing if I closed with this SMT, but not a big deal. But overall, yeah, that's a trade I took. And then as you can see right from here, we end up just reversing all the way back up. So, pretty decent day, I guess. I could have partialed here, I guess, but overall, not bad, especially getting 2 setups in a day and being able to secure something after getting a break even and 2 session opens. But overall, not terrible. I would take both of these again every single day of the week. If you guys have any questions, let me know. Like and subscribe for more. And other than that, have a great weekend.